Welcome to Radio 64. Welcome to Radio 64 Video Game Music Remix Radio. I'm your host, Eric Mickles, also known online as duskvstweak. Radio 64 is part of the Radio Meanwhile network. Visit radiomeanwhile.com for more information about this and other great podcasts. Share your thoughts on this episode and request music by following the show on Facebook or Twitter at Radio64Pod. Please rate, subscribe, and share this show on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. We opened the show with DJ Snivy's Smooth Moves by OceansAndrew and OverClocked University from OCRemix.org from the game Pokémon Black version. That was a happy candy-coated synth piece there, coming from the later Pokémon games, the 2010 DS Pokémon game, the Pokémon Black and White version. A lot of fun there, mixing a lot of the electric guitar and synthesizer in there together to create a bouncy piece that has a little rock to it. Just very sugary, not the type of music that I can have too much of. You don't want to just have cake for dinner every night, but still an enjoyable piece there. Released in September of 2020. We've got a few other tracks that are brand new, offering remixes from tracks from games that we haven't featured before. I think this is as far as we've gone in the Pokemon timeline. Usually, I could just kind of stick to Pokemon Red. I think we've done a little bit of Silver, maybe. But yeah, this is the first time we've gotten at least into the 2010s here in the Pokemon franchise. All right, up next is a funk piece from Mega Man 5. It's remixing the Gravity Man stage. And this is doing something that I feel like is becoming a slight trend on the site right now, where it's very much a progressive piece of the genre. This is going for a bit of a jazz funk, a bit of rock in there as well, but it goes through a lot of different movements and a lot of different elements. It reminds me of a Mario Galaxy track we played not too long ago. If the bands like Rush and Yes had gone the jazz route, I'm wondering if this isn't what we'd be hearing. There's a little bit of this that reminds me of Mega Man when I'm hearing it, but I think it kind of goes off into such a different genre of music that it's almost impossible to pinpoint this by the franchise. There are some songs that you listen to and you're like, oh, that's from Mega Man, that's from Donkey Kong, that's from Mario, and then you hear this and you're like, I can't really pick it. The 1992 Nintendo Entertainment System game, Mega Man 5, if you listen to this and you just like, oh yeah, that's what it's from, then I commend you. But then I'm not familiar with the Gravity Man stage theme music. This is Gravidade by Leandro Abreu, André Pastore, Helton Lima, Leo Quintão, and Marco Lima from OceansAndrew.org from the game Mega Man 5. That was Gravidade by Leandro Abreu, André Helton Lima, Leo Quintão, and Marco Lima from OceansAndrew.org from the game Mega Man 5. Up next is a solo piano piece that's going the classical route, for sure. A wonderful piece remixing Betus Blues from Super Meat Boy, a game that is very tough but very satisfying at the end, though I can only admit to having completed the light side, the light world section of Meat Boy. I haven't even attempted the dark world of Super Meat Boy, and I don't think I'm going to because I don't know if I'm that much of a masochist. I like a lot of the movements in this song. It's just a very strong and confident piano piece, remixing a very fun source that has a strong sense of progression as you play the game, always keeping your anxiety level high, though. This is Kind of Betus Blues Piano by Brent Kennedy from OceansAndrew.org from the game Super Meat Boy. That was Kind of Betus Blues Piano by Brent Kennedy from OceansAndrew.org from the game Super Meat Boy. I like this next piece. It's a symphonic waltz, but it has a lot of fantastical elements in it. It's creating a medieval sense from a game called Firelord, an adventure game back on the Commodore 64. And when you listen to the music on that Commodore, it's nice. It has a lot going for it, but then you hear this version and you think this must be what the original creator, this must be what Ben Daglish had originally intended in his head. This would feel comfortable in a Final Fantasy game. A lot of different instruments, a lot of woodwinds in this with a bit of brass. This is Galaheart's Journey by Glyn R. Brown from OceansAndrew.org from the game Firelord. That was Galaheart's Journey by Glyn R. Brown from OceansAndrew from the game Firelord. Going with the waltz version of this, I think, has given it a lot of classical energy, a sense of triumph in there. Also new to the site is One Must Fall 2064, a remix from the game One Must Fall 2097. A remix with enough chiptune combined with that synth to actually sound more like a Mega Man track than the previous Mega Man track did, I think. It's very bouncy, a lot of fun, a little bit of glitching going on throughout. So it's a very happy atmosphere. This is One Must Fall 2064 by Eino Keskitalo from OceansAndrew from the game One Must Fall 2097. That was One Must Fall 2064 by Eino Keskitalo from OceansAndrew from the game One Must Fall 2097, 1994 DOS game. Now we have a trance piece coming from Final Fantasy X, a lengthy piece that has a lot of layers to it. Blind is able to fill up every channel with sound in this, expand it, really take advantage of all the space. When it's going full blast, this thing has plenty of energy. A great trance piece, remixing People of the North Pole from the game. So this is White Skies Club Mix by Blind from OceansAndrew from the game Final Fantasy X. That was White Skies Club Mix by Blind from OceansAndrew.org from the game Final Fantasy X. One of my favorite soundtracks from the Final Fantasy games. I mean, it's one of my it's in at least my top 3 favorite Final Fantasies. The music is just wonderful throughout. A lot of tracks, I think, that when that game came out became instant classics for sure. Speaking of instant classics upon release, Halo Combat Evolved, the very first Halo. A couple of versions of that theme, Halo and the Monir mix. This is a bit more conservative as a remix because it's going for this orchestral cinematic tone, which is what the Halo theme in the original game was going for anyways. Less Gregorian chant in this mix, for sure, but it's still a track that's going to give you goosebumps upon listening. This is Insurrection by Krispy from OceansAndrew.org from the game Halo Combat Evolved. That was Insurrection by Krispy from OCRemix.org from the game Halo Combat Evolved. I love the way that remix just ends, similar to the main Halo theme, and just lets that the vocal work take over. The Halo theme is just so strong to be able to power any game that it's in. Okay, this is kind of a dark club mix, not unlike the Final Fantasy track we played. This is a lot heavier in the synth than Blind's was. There's a very persistent and strong drum track going on in this. There's something about the progression in this that is much darker and even a bit cynical in its style. It's coming from Ecco, The Tides of Time, and remixing The Vents of Medusa. Those games kind of have that dark beauty to them. This is Fury of Medusa by Sadorf from OCRemix.org from the game Ecco, The Tides of Time. That was Fury of Medusa by Sadorf from OCRemix.org from the game Ecco, The Tides of Time. I recently turned on the original Ecco in my Genesis collection that I have on Steam. I didn't play the whole thing, I just played around in the first level. It's still just so gorgeous. That Sega Genesis game is still so pretty today. The movement of Ecco is just still impressive. I remember being shocked by how good it looked as a kid, and I'm still very impressed with it today. All right, this is a nice, smooth jazz mix. We've had some heavier and rocking jazz pieces today, but this is nice and smooth, very, very much the jazz you'd hear in a club. It's remixing a track from Axelay, which I was unfamiliar with back on the Super NES. It's a Konami shooter where you're in a ship, but what's interesting is it does the R-type side-scrolling ship combat, but then it also goes bird's eye view, and it really is using that Mode 7 effect on the Super Nintendo. Some of the backgrounds underneath you remind me of the F-Zero, how all those lights you're seeing are supposed to be the cityscape beneath you. But it looked intense. I don't think I would have been very good at it as a kid. This is City Lights by Pastore from OceansAndrew from the game Axelay. That was City Lights by Pastore from OceansAndrew from the game Axelay. Yeah, and there's something about that type of jazz that also reminds me of the Zelda series. I mean, Nintendo's very heavy on the use of jazz in their games. But yeah, a much older mix there from the year 2001. Or 19-year-old mix there, but still as smooth today as it was back then. We have a really cool James Bond track. This is coming from Tomorrow Never Dies, which I think is kind of an oddity because all the James Bond tracks we've played now are GoldenEye. But I've also heard very little in terms of people who have played or enjoyed Tomorrow Never Dies back on the PlayStation. We didn't get it on the 64. Tommy Tallarico, who is extremely prolific in the video game music industry, did that soundtrack, and so Mazdude has taken it and given it his patented experimental sounds. Yeah, there's a lot of the James Bond theme in here, but it still sounds incredibly gamey. What's nice is because it's remixing a lot of the source, the James Bond track as well. You can listen to this and think, you know what, this is a GoldenEye track, isn't it? The difference is that it's remixing a Tommy Tallarico track instead of the Rare soundtrack. This is Carvosity by Mazdude from the American album from the game Tomorrow Never Dies. That was Carvosity by Mazdude from the American album by Carvosity. The American album is a Mazdude original, focusing on tracks from American composers. It's an old classic of video game remixes, and definitely deserves your time. So you should go to mazdude.com to find more about that album and more of his work there as well. All right, that was the last track, so thank you for listening to Radio 64 Video Game Music Remix Radio. I have been your host, Eric Mickles, also known online as duskvstweak. You can find me on Twitter, YouTube, Twitch under duskvstweak, as well as the other shows on Radio Meanwhile. And you can visit radiomeanwhile.com for more information about this and the other great podcasts. So share your thoughts on this episode, request music by following the show on Facebook or Twitter at Radio64Pod, and please rate, subscribe, and share this show on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.